Thanks for tuning in to Closing Time, the show for go-to-market leaders. I'm Dave Osborne, Chief Sales Officer at Insightly CRM, and I'm joined today by Neil Rogers. Neil is a marketing professional, speaker, business owner, and the author of the book Bar Tips: Everything I Need to Know in Sales I Learned Behind the Bar. Thanks for joining us today, Neil.
Dave, fantastic to be here, my friend.
Awesome. Awesome. So, Neil, one of the first chapters of your book is titled All Business is in the Hospitality Business, right? Now, I haven't worked in hospitality myself. Funny enough, my son recently started his first job as a server at a restaurant, so he'll pick up where I missed. But I've hired a lot of sales reps over the years who have been either bartenders or servers in past lives, and they all generally have really great relationship building skills. Is that what you're referring to in this initial chapter?
What we did in that case is we did some research after I discovered, at this event where my daughter was being honored at a chamber event. The guy who brought Five Guys burgers to New Hampshire was the guest speaker. His rah-rah speech to his team, you weren't in hospitality, but it's called pre-meal, and before they start their shift, was we're not in the burger business, we're not in the fry business, we're not in the soda business, we're not in the shake business. We're in the hospitality business. And I looked at my wife just like this and said, I've never left the hospitality business. I've been bartending on the road for 30 plus years. So what we did at that point, this was kind of, at that point, I wanted to discover who else was actively using hospitality to in their businesses. So we found, a lot of financial planners do. We found Starbucks to be incredibly hospitable. We found a little men's store in Atlanta that had a gumball machine. So it winds up being these little things of engagement that is hospitality in some places. It's these little things that they thought through, little adjunct to enhance the experience. So the question is yes. Well, how we came up with that is, through research.
It's interesting too, and I feel like this has been an emerging trend, especially in tech, which is where we play, is, over time, products and solutions become more and more homogenous, right? They become more commoditized. And it seems like, maybe in the past 10 years, that as products become very strong just universally, this has become kind of a core differentiator to a lot of organizations is what kind of experience, can you provide to your customers? Or even put another way, what experience are you applying for your employees as well, right? So it's maybe
Sure.
leaning less on the core product or solution as people may have done 20 years ago, and really, really hammering down on kind of what sorts of experiences are we providing.
We get these things that you could tell they scrubbed it right from Sales Navigator out of LinkedIn. Dear Neil P. And I sit there and go, really? Dave, one thing I want to do is I want to call him up on the phone and go, really, tell me this works, please. You're kidding me. This actually works when you use somebody's middle initial. Obviously, you don't know who I am. Obviously, you don't know. It's just a random spray and pray model. So they got away a little bit from the basics, and it's just like, well, let's just throw out and see who comes our way.
Totally. Well, let's talk about the basics, right? Because I think, as sales leaders, we often notice, experienced sellers getting really, really absorbed in some of the different, complex sales tactics that they may be overlooking the basics, right? And in your book, a recurring theme is the golden rule, right? And you highlight the significance of paying attention to those little things. So, why is it so important for these sellers to revisit and consider the basics here?
Which is basic human interaction. If you think what I say here, when I sit here, I'm working on something for a customer, how would I want to be treated? And so we take that theme throughout everything that we do. And I think it's led a lot to our success and focusing on the little things and focusing on the attention to detail and a random act of kindness now and again, being humble and kind and just generally nicer. I have this great story I always tell. We did a lot of business with New Balance at one point. We're in the primary business is in the swag business. And so this gentleman came to me. I became friendly with the guy, right? Did a lot of work for him, whatnot, did him right. He did me right. We had a what I call hospitality happiness, symbiotic, right? And he says, so he left there and went to one of my vendors, and he called me up one day. He said, Neil, can you help me out here? Can you look at the website and give us some ideas and blah 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 blah, all the technical stuff, right? I said, Brian, I'm going to give you the best piece of advice I can give you. I leaned right in and said, hire nicer people. We don't deal with your company because they're not nice and they don't treat us well and they don't greet us well and they're not listening to what our ask is. You have the products. There's no difference in pricing. And because you're there, that may sway me a little, give you another try, but you're still going to have nicer people because otherwise I'm going to be calling you. Hey, this guy's a jerk to me, and why are we going to do business with you?
Yeah,
So
you know what's interesting too about that, Neil, is I think a lot. I guess it depends on your philosophy of wherever you learn how to sell or whoever your mentors were, et cetera. But I think especially as you get into like, the world of enterprise sales, I think directness. I mean, sometimes having to be a jerk or having these conversations. Like, look, sometimes you're going to have hard conversations with your customer or your prospect. But I think to your point, right? As long as we're treating them like a human being, right? You're humble about it. Like, listen, we're going to have a hard conversation right now, but that doesn't mean you have to be we have to ruin this partnership over it, which I think it's just about how your tone and how you approach these things. And I think a lot of times they miss that. They get too caught up in their quota or whatever. They miss that we're dealing with another human being at the end of the phone there.
yeah, if you've got to make the number and I know in tech you guys are always, well, here comes the quarter and here we go, let's
Yep.
jam as much as we can in. It's like, come on, do us today, and all that. And I think it takes away, it's almost counterproductive, what we call the difference between persistence and tenacity. So persistence sounds like pest for a reason, right? You're banging phones, you're leaving a voicemail. I can't believe you're not getting back to me. Not going to work. So they might just give you one and done, and that's it. But that's not going to be a long term. That's certainly not a long term relationship make, right? So I think you've just got to come along, and yeah, occasionally, yeah, you're going to have a listen. We can't do that for you. If you maybe if you can get it somewhere else in that fashion, I'm going to have to pass. But please come back to me. I'll work on another project for you or whatever. But I don't know how you're getting those numbers or what they're promising you. But what happens 9 times out of 10, they come back to you.
Now you mentioned process, and I wanted to drill into that a little bit. So you and your wife co-founded and trademarked the positive activity process, right? Which begins with making small shifts in your mindset, right?
Correct.
So what are the steps involved in that process? And I'd love to learn a little bit more about how it can ultimately boost productivity for various teams.
So we do certain practices every morning, and those practices are simple, and they're straight out of Sean Acor's The Happiness Advantage, Martin Seligman's books on positivity. Three things I'm grateful for. Then I take one with some time and have a real intentional recall and act like we're going through it again. I meditate for I'm transcendental meditation trained, but don't worry, gang out there. It's not what you have to do. It's not. I just did it because I thought I needed it, which is 20 minutes in the morning, 20 minutes night. And I bob in and out of it. I do all different forms, but 5 minutes, listen to your breath, right? I do some sort of reach out or random act of kindness. We do I am statements. So things like, I reinforce what I am, right? And what I am building to be better at. And that is I am a speaker, I am a musician, I am a writer. And then because of our path, I am positive, I am creative, I am productive, I am enough, I have enough. That every day we do some sort of movement. We're athletic, we do movement. I go to yoga, I do hot Pilates, I weight train. For 10 years, I did a road bike. Now I'm worried about getting hit, so I'm out of that. And then I do a thing, but this is one I added. Of course, it's an adjustment of something that's out there. Have you ever heard of the Four Agreements?
I have,
Okay,
yes.
so I
I've
write
read
the
the
Four
book. It's been
Agreements.
years though, so let's do a quick refresher.
All right, quick refresher. The four are: be impeccable with your words. Don't be disparaging of yourself or of others. Don't take things personal. Don't make assumptions, and always do your best. So in here, I write, I will be impeccable with my words. I won't take things personal. I won't make assumptions. I will always do my best. So now that gets me, now I can open up an email. It's the process, and we just talked about the process, right? Of getting your mindset right. So now you're in a decent place, and you're into divergent thinking. You're open minded, and you're solution provider. Now you got that number you got to make. How am I going to creatively talk to my clients, send something that might jog them a little bit, might give them a little, boy, Neil's a little creative. So that's where the tenacity piece comes in. So persistence sounds like pest. Tenacity is when you do something different, something creative that shows that you really want the person's business.
I think it's powerful, Neil. And coming back to like if you're in the hospitality business, right?
Yep.
Or if you're a bartender, or if you're a server, or if you're a tech seller or customer, a CSM, right? When you're dealing with customers, when you're dealing with people, you're going to have good days and bad days. You're going to have good interactions and bad interactions, right? But I like the concept of putting yourself in a positive mindset, maybe to start the day, you know, as maybe you have a tough meeting or a tough situation. How do I get back to kind of a centeredness, right? And then how can we potentially, find, continued and sustainable centeredness and peace, even at the end of the day, right? Or throughout your daily life. I think that's one of the hard things, right? Is you see, a lot of people take work home with them, right? And I'm sure there's plenty of people out there, plenty of salespeople out there that may actually end up going to a bar to try to take their mind off of work. But there's probably, like I said, more healthy, more productive ways to go about doing that. Well, Neil, really appreciate it. That's all the time we have for this episode today. Where can folks learn more about your program and purchase the book?
So you can go right to positiveactivity.net. The book is right. There's a link to the book, but it also discusses all the programs we kind of broad stroked here today, and how they can get a hold of us. There's some downloadable stuff we're throwing on there. Give them little tidbits, and there's a link right to Amazon for the book. There is a workbook associated with the book, and we'll be getting that out there pretty soon. And but yeah, it's positiveactivity.net.
Perfect. Well, Neil, thanks so much for joining us today.
Dave, it's been super.
Awesome. Well, special thanks to everyone else for tuning in. Remember to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and tick the bell for notifications so you don't miss an episode. We'll see you next time on Closing Time.